Good morning, my friends. This is a little bit of an unusual setting for my frequencies vlog. I'm in Victoria, which is part of London, if you didn't know. And I've got to get the train to Paris in 3 hours. And that station is only 4.2 kilometers away. So instead of taking the tube, which is right over there, and to be honest, it's going to be too hot down there for what I'm wearing, so I'm going to walk it. Welcome to London, home of the homeless. Symbolism is everywhere. Well, I've walked about a click and a half and I'm here. Where the old lady in a shiny hat lives. I was watching an interview recently with Eckhart Tolle, a spiritual teacher. They were asking him what was his spiritual awakening like, what did it feel like? And he said that it took place when he was in his early 30s. And he was actually living in London at the time, and he said he was really unhappy. He said I was really unhappy, what people call depressed. And I remember thinking to myself, I just can't live with myself any longer. He sort of had his epiphany because he was thinking, right, I can't live with myself, so who am I and who is myself? And at that moment he realised that he was the conscious observer, not the self. And he says, yeah, I remember getting up that morning and going out and getting the bus and travelling through London and seeing all these people going about their business and just feeling a complete sense of calm and, you know, seeing the stillness in between all the hustle and bustle. And that's what he talks about a lot in his book, Power of Now. And so I've been bearing that in mind today when I'm here, because I get pretty well, it's a lot to take in, you know, it's a lot to take in, and it is oppressive if you don't have your filters up. If you don't, is my bag yet?
Please try and keep that with you. A couple of things. Apart from the fact, when it starts to build up, we get a bit nervous about stuff like that.
I didn't. What's good?
The other thing is that we've got a lot of thefts here as well.
Sure.
And if you leave it on the table, as the crowds build up, there's a danger you're going to get your pocket.
So yeah, I can't really stand the underground. So when I look at the map and I see it's only 4.2k, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to walk that. It's a really nice day. It's an absolutely beautiful day. When I get to Paris later on, I've got to walk. Google says it's a 1 hour and 10 minute walk, and I've got 1 hour and 40 minutes. So I don't think I'll be vlogging during that one. I'll just be stomping. That's going to be later this afternoon. Now look at this willow tree here. Look at that willow tree. Look at the bottom of it. Look how neat that is. That means someone goes out there in a boat and trims the bottom of that, because obviously you can see it from the castle. Beg pardon, the palace. My girlfriend Julie's been living in London for months now, many months, and I've been here many times. And because she's no stranger to cities, she's lived in many different cities, she's kind of helped me to acclimatise to it. But I don't get on with the underground. I don't get on with the claustrophobia and the heat and the crowds. So this is the street where one of the 2 years, I think the first year I came to the Million Miles March, we obviously they give you a piece of paper which tells you the scheduled locations that you're allowed to visit on the protest. And obviously because it's a protest, you visit those locations and then you disregard the plan and you go and do some legitimate protests, go in places they don't want you to go. But they're prepared for anything. So by the time we got to the palace, you know, hundreds of police were already waiting there for us. As we were sort of marching there, the police vans were coming past us, and there were like squads of police officers jogging down the block as well, you know, to intercept us and to break us up. And that's what it's all about. That's what they try to do. They try to break up the protest group, so that instead of hundreds of protesters all in a group, it's maybe dozens. And they use this technique called kettling, which is where basically they get a group of you into a side street or an alley like this one, with, you know, there's a wall all the way down that side, there's a wall most of the way down this side, and there's nowhere really for you to go. And they had a bunch of guys here and a bunch of guys around barricades, and they trapped us in. And then obviously you get people have a sort of wild animal, a sort of trapped wild animal reaction to that. And there were a few among us. You know, mostly it's peaceful, even though it's masked and it's anonymous. I mean, it's supposedly staged by that group Anonymous, but you get some people who start behaving very aggressively and they start throwing more than just insults at the police. So I do remember that happening in this street. There was one guy who was particularly enraged, and he was shouting at us, berating us for not fighting back. But, you know, we didn't know what to do. We were just civilians. The police are just doing their job, and you know, ultimately all of that frustration in the protesters and all of that outpouring of emotion is just absorbed by the police uniform, just absorbed by the barricades. They knock off, they go home, they collect their salary, and you go home and you're just scratching your head like, what did we really achieve? Disgusting. I think the only time I actually enjoy coffee is when I'm drinking it with Julie, because she's a bit of a connoisseur and she'll always explain to me that, oh, this is the best Ethiopian bean you can get, and that sort of makes it more enjoyable. So I'm sat opposite the British Museum in a little Italian cafe, listening to this old fella over here playing some French style accordion. It's almost like I can imagine that I'm already in Paris, where I'm going to be in about 4 hours doing this same stunt. But then I won't have time to sit down and have a coffee. One of the things that I become aware of most when I'm in a city, so there's just, you're seeing hundreds of people in a minute, is the dynamics that exist between men and women, male and female. And a big component of what psychologists might call depersonalization disorder, and what I call a spiritual awakening, a certain component of it is becoming aware of the stream of thinking in your own mind and becoming aware of it as something other than your own, right? This is exactly what Eckhart Tolle was talking about, asking himself the question, I can't live with myself. Who in that sentence is I, and who is myself? He must be experiencing some aspect of that depersonalization disorder to be able to regard his own thoughts objectively like that, as the other. And I definitely do that. So going back to the male and female, the man and woman dynamic, it's everywhere you go, but it's just you see it a lot more in the city. Even in the cold, when people are wearing layers and they're covered up, you can still see enough to look. And sometimes it warrants a more blatant look almost. So I catch myself doing it. I catch myself doing it. So I, the observer, catch myself, something else, something other than I, doing it. Whereas when I was unaware, when I was not conscious of it, I would just do it and it was my thoughts. These were my thoughts and my feelings. I was experiencing them as just me, but now I experience them as something other. And so I will see, I'll catch myself doing it, and I will I won't scold myself, I just kind of go, that's not me, that's not how I wish to be. You know, I would have said it was enjoyable, and men and women who are doing this and just experiencing it as your own thoughts and your own feelings, you're not going to have a clue what I'm talking about, perhaps. So, for example, I was following this, you know, this sort of tall, slender, long, black hair. You know, I didn't see her face, but she was presumably, this is a beautiful young woman, and she's walking down the street, and I was following her maybe 5 or 6 paces behind. And you know, I don't want to stereotype construction workers, but we were walking past a construction site, and as she was going past, you know, a guy kind of just came out of a doorway carrying something, and he just kind of like, he didn't break his stride or anything, but he just like completely fully looked at her kind of torso area, her tits, and then looked down and looked up like this, and then just carried on doing what he was doing. But I could see his face, and I could see this total look of blank unconsciousness about it. He was just completely, you know, everything I see in this entire world, everything I see in this street, is just a reflection of me. So when I see the lustful construction worker, that unconscious lustful look in his eye, that's reflecting something that's still in me. When I see these women walking around and I have these certain thoughts, it's reflecting me. It's showing me progress. It's definitely showing me progress and healing. That's the thing. I just looked at that girl's ass. I'm talking about this, and a girl just walked past in a tight pair of jeans, and I looked at her ass. But I caught myself doing it. That's the thing. I caught myself doing it. It's mad. But yeah, that's it. It's just awareness. You become aware of these things. Because I'm following the GPS and I'm sort of taking the as the crow flies route. But you get to see all these weird, random little places, little neighbourhoods, and you see a structure like this, and you're like, is this an art installation or is this a climbing frame? It's a bit of both, really, isn't it? So, but just think to yourself, you know, if there were kids here, what would they be doing? You know, they'd be climbing all over this thing. So, if they would do it, why shouldn't I? And yeah, I've had a positive realization in the last few hundred meters since the coffee shop, and that is that I objectify the physical form of bicycles and motorcycles far more than I do women. And that's something it's a thought that's occurred to me in the past, that there's definitely a correlation there between the way I objectify two-wheeled machinery, let's say, of all kinds. But it doesn't seem that there's no negative attachment there for me. It doesn't feel like there's something that needs to be like it's not doing any harm somehow. I feel like when I objectify women, it's kind of bad for the woman if she notices that she's being objectified, but it's bad for me if I notice that I'm doing it. And of course I notice it pretty much every time now because I've reached a certain level of awareness. You can't really miss St Pancras. It looks like Hogwarts or something, doesn't it? Oh damn, check out that baby. Look at the ass on that. Just a quick shot of wherever this is in Paris at about sunset. I'm headed in that direction. I've got 3.5 kilometers to walk in 1 hour, so I can't hang around really. So that is my train, La Roche-Migène, 6:27, and the time now is 6:15. So I've made it to Auxerre. I've just got off the train in the station there, and I was looking at the screens trying to figure out, oh, where's the train? It says like platform 2 or something. I couldn't figure it out, and then I found it. It's a bus.